It was a trial like no one had ever seen in South Carolina. A prominent lawyer from a prominent family in the Low Country accused of the ultimate betrayal, the execution-style murders of his own family. Alex Murdaugh became a household name, the most infamous attorney in the nation. The trial was filled with dramatic testimony, dramatic evidence, and of course, a dramatic verdict. Murdaugh became a convicted double murderer. But now, the drama is back in the Low Country. This time, it's the jury and the court clerk. Allegations from the defense that Becky Hill, the court clerk, tampered with this jury. And now, the jury is lawyering up. And we have the lawyers on the show tonight who will be representing some of the 12 who found Alex Murdaugh guilty. What are they saying about these allegations against the clerk? Tonight, we find out as we investigate the jury drama in the Murdaugh family murder trial.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. I can't believe where we are in this case. We're back in the Low Country tonight. But let me start here. I mean, courtrooms and trials are just unpredictable. And you know that. You've been watching for years. I've been covering this stuff for years. I've been a prosecutor inside the courtroom. They're just unpredictable. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. And then that's why we have trials, because you don't know what people are going to say. You don't know how people are going to react. You don't know who's going to cry, who's going to lie. All of that plays out in real time inside courtrooms. And that's part of the draw of why people are so captivated by what happens inside as we seek and try to get to the truth. But at the end of the day, it's unpredictable what's going to happen inside that courtroom. Now, sometimes it's a surprising verdict. Like, we were pretty shocked at this moment, right? I think he was too at the moment. If you look closely at his face when that jury said not guilty, I think O.J. Simpson was shocked then too. Surprising verdicts, that's something that you expect from time to time, right? It's kind of like par for the course. It's not like, oh my goodness, there's a surprising verdict. Well, yeah, there's a lot of surprising verdicts. There are. It just happens that way. Then we had a case, and this was another example of how things are just unpredictable in the courtroom. Ezra McCandless, on trial for murder in the middle of this like love triangle. She's accused of murdering one man because she wanted this other man. And somehow she thought murdering him would help her get the man who broke up with her back, you know, proving her love to him. Well, he was a witness in the trial. And there's a moment when he walks back inside that courtroom, and Ezra McCandless, who's just like, this is why she did it. And her face goes flush. And she's got to take off her glasses and clean them. And she can't control the smile, being in the same room with the man that she loves. It's her murder trial. Life behind bars. And she was convicted, but she didn't care. And who would predict that? How could you predict that a woman would be more infatuated with a man walking inside the courtroom than being involved with, you know, the 12 members of the jury, the evidence in the case? No, she didn't want any part of it. She just wanted her man back and was just like, oh my goodness, he's here. I can't believe it. If you want to see that video, it's on my Facebook page, Vinny Politan Court TV. You can check it out. Now, let's get back to the Low Country. Court clerk chaos is the only way I could describe this. The allegations against the court clerk, of all people, the one who's there, whose job is really to protect and take care of the jury and to keep people from interfering with the whole process, is the one accused of interfering in the process? There's no way I could have predicted this. This is like 10,000% unpredictable. Never seen it before. The court clerk? Like, I've seen other people accused of talking to members of the jury. Sometimes it's an inexperienced reporter. Sometimes it's someone who's just walked in the elevator with a juror or something. But this is completely different. We've never seen this before. It has been a wild week in the Low Country. Take a look.
The defendant will rise. Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict.
The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Guilty, verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
The Clerk of Court had improper private communications with the jurors, and the subject matter of those communications was the credibility of the defense that the Murdaugh legal defense team put up, and it was the believability of the defendant's own testimony.
Well, the Clerk of Court does a big job of being a liaison between the judge, the lawyers, the public, the documents that are in a trial. In a case of this magnitude, there's a lot of documents, there's a lot of paper, there was a lot of people that had come together from all over the world. We had people coming from France, England, California, Wyoming, and so many other places, just to be able to open our doors and have everything together for the trial that we were going to have. Just a normal, any other day kind of trial was huge. It was epic.
We never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the Clerk of Court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language, and if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there's no choice but the courts to grant a new trial. But immediately in the aftermath of the verdict, we had received information that we needed to look into what happened in the jury room. We started down that road, and we met a zone of silence. No jurors would speak to us. And so we were, what I like to call, we were given the Heisman, right? And then when the Clerk of Court wrote her book, published her book, that zone of silence collapsed. Jurors who obviously were not comfortable with how she handled matters were even less comfortable with her going on a book tour and making money off what she did. That's what was reported to us.
Well, she's trying to make a lot of money. That's the point. I mean, she's trying to make money off of it. She's selling the book. I mean, the question is, was it a successful scheme? I don't know. I mean, if you've read it, I'm not going to give a book review here, but I don't know that you'd buy the book.
I got to tell you, you asked my reaction. I was pretty upset at what Harpootlian said was the motivation that Becky had. Last time I checked, Simon & Schuster did not send us a check for $200,000. The Gordons and the Hills put up $30,000 of our own money because we felt this was an interesting story to tell. So right away, Vinny, for that to be motivation for her to get a book deal is completely false. We felt it was a story that should be told. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm 59 years old. I don't know that there will ever be another trial like this, and it was my honor and pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity and character as someone like Becky Hill.
So the press conference this week by Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, the attorneys for Alex Murdaugh, really set off a firestorm, which, at one point ended up on Twitter. I want you to take a look at this tweet by Eric Bland. He's been on the show many times, helping us out through our coverage of this story and this case. Here's what he tweeted. At the press conference earlier this week, Dick Harpootlian suggested that the jurors should get lawyers. How offensive is that? How threatening is that? Obviously, Ms. Hill had to get lawyers and pay for them. If any juror feels like they need legal representation or just to get some advice, please feel free to call Ronnie Richter and me. We would not charge a fee for the consultation or representation. It's just disgraceful that people are having to pay for legal fees in this most unfortunate situation. So, the jurors are getting lawyers now. They are. And guess who's joining us tonight? From Columbia, South Carolina, those lawyers. Criminal defense attorneys representing two of the Murdaugh jurors. Joe McCulloch is with us. Great to see you tonight. Also in Columbia, South Carolina, the attorney also representing some of the Murdaugh jurors and host of the Cup of Justice podcast, Eric Bland, is with us. Great to see you both tonight. I wasn't expecting to be here in what's going on here. Let me start with you, Joe. Your reaction to everything that's happening here. Now you're representing jurors in this case?
Benny, I just lost you. I'm representing two jurors. That is absolutely correct. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear us, Joe?
Not getting you.
All right, so it's time for me and Eric to talk behind your back. Eric Blaine, you can hear me, right?
I can.
Okay. So, Eric, do you believe, you're representing jurors now, do you believe all the jurors will have the same testimony if they were subpoenaed or had to appear inside the courtroom to talk about any interaction or any observations of the court clerk, Becky Hill? Do you think all the jurors will be in the same boat and say, yeah, X, Y, and Z happened?
No. I can't reveal attorney-client privilege. I represent 2 jurors, but I am pretty sure that what you're going to hear from some of the jurors, if not most of the jurors, except the ones that Joe is representing, it is directly the opposite of what Dick Harpootlian said from the microphone on Tuesday. You know, Vinny, no matter how many times you say something or how loud you say something, doesn't make it true if it's not true. And the fact that there are 1 or 2 jurors that say Ms. Hill said some things before Alex testified or allegedly made some comments about the defense attorneys is troubling. No question it should be investigated. We can never have a situation where anybody other than the judge gives instructions to the jury. But don't be fooled here. You know, these are jurors that sat for 7 weeks and listened to the evidence. If an innocuous statement was made or some kind of offhanded comment, I am certain that 12 jurors would not have given somebody a conviction of murder and ultimately a life sentence simply because of one thing that was said when they heard evidence for 7 weeks and they saw people testify. But again, this is very serious. And Harpootlian has gone after the king, and you better kill the king when you go after him, because if not, Becky Hill's going to have the best defamation case I have ever seen against Dick Harpootlian.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, Vinny, it's so nice to be back with you. What I would say about this is that I'm fascinated at the playground that is full of the troll patrol people talking badly about so many subjects. And frankly, Eric, I'm glad you got a couple of these jurors, because our responsibility is to protect the process, not the result. As lawyers, whether you agree with the guilty verdict or not, the question before us now, before the court, the fascination that is creating the need for us to be on television, it's about what happened. Becky Hill is a person who did a wonderful job as clerk of court throughout the trial in handling the press and handling the scads of people that showed up. And now we've got to find out if something else happened. And I think it's incumbent on the lawyer to not be concerned about protecting the verdict. It's about the process.
So where are we? Where are we right now? If we've got jurors who see or hear things differently, and we've got some level of a split inside this jury room, Joe, what does that mean?
Well, I'm not happy to be in the position I am representing 2 jurors. I was asked by the jurors originally to keep the press away from them. Things happened. I can't go into those things, but their decision to give information under oath now is a part of a record that will have to be evaluated.
Let me ask you about that, Joe. And I wanted to.
Yeah.
So your clients, they are the ones who signed these affidavits. Is it their sworn statement, or is it the sworn statement of someone they spoke to?
To my knowledge, 2 of the sworn statements by jurors are the jurors that I represent. I wouldn't reveal their names. Their juror numbers, I think, are a part of that record. The exhibits attached to the affidavits, and I think God knows the names and the connection to jury numbers is about the worst kept secret in the country right now. But they came forward reluctantly. They provided their truth. And now that becomes a part of a record that must be evaluated by the court. I mean, it's the troll patrol that's out there feverishly protecting a verdict cannot be joined by lawyers It's not our job, Eric. Our job is to protect the process. And we can only do that now by examining all of the jurors, perhaps. And let me say a word about jurors lawyering up. One thing I know after 47 years of practicing criminal defense, part of that as a prosecutor, but now as most of the time as a criminal defense lawyer, police officers behave differently when witnesses have a lawyer. So I think the advice that they have a lawyer is good advice. I think it gives them a protection and it gives them a comfort level so that they feel free to tell the truth. That's what matters now.
Is there a sense, though, by the way this was all presented on Tuesday, that some jurors might believe like they're in trouble? Like you're in trouble, you need a lawyer?
Well, they shouldn't believe that, and maybe some of them are watching tonight. That was not, I don't think that was the purpose of Mr. Harpootlian's message, but I didn't write the script. I didn't talk to him about what he was going to say. I don't believe any member of this jury panel, at least so far as I know, is in some kind of jeopardy unless they do not tell the truth when they are asked to do so.
So here's the other part of this, Eric, right, is that if this is happening, and I get it's different because it's the clerk and it's a different relationship than someone else speaking to a juror, I'm surprised that it wasn't brought up earlier, because that is something you would bring up to the judge, right? Wouldn't you at some point?
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with Joe. I fundamentally disagree with Joe. We can't have a system where jurors make a decision, render a verdict, are individually polled, swore to uphold the law, in open court say that they gave a free and just verdict without coercion or duress, and then 3 months later, whether they decide they're going to change their mind or they have a decision remorse or they're manipulated a little bit by the defense attorneys when they're confronted. I worry about a system if we can open up the can after every major jury verdict, if one or two jurors decide to create a disturbance that has been created here, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But if 10 jurors say it didn't happen and 2 say it does, I think a judge is going to have to ultimately rule in favor of the prosecution. But I am worried about a system where jurors can change their minds 3 months after they are polled and said it was a free verdict.
You need to spend more time in our criminal system, because it happens. Jurors are not free from interference. Oh, no, absolutely. Interference never does. The question, again, is process. It's not your protection of the verdict, Eric. It is about the court now, whatever court and however the Court of Appeals determines to handle this. It's about questioning jurors. Now, let me go back to this question of why wouldn't somebody have said something during the process? Well, I can tell you why. If you've ever been stopped by a highway patrolman for whatever, you don't want to say too much because you don't know what you're going to say that's going to get you in trouble. So the very point that Vinny was asking about, are jurors in trouble? Not necessarily. I don't believe that's necessarily the case. I think that their natural being a part of a 6-week trial, seeing a judge who is the authority figure, I don't think they were going to be answering unless they were asked about things. I think they, we'll have to see what other jurors say. We'll have to see if
let me ask you this.
If anything happens.
Is it a problem if in this jury room, at the end of the trial, they all kind of talk to each other and say, we're not going to say anything about it? Is that a problem? Like if they said, listen, we're not, if you want to go to the Today Show or whatever, talk about we're not going to talk about what we did. Is that a problem if a jury decides that?
Well, I think the judges in our criminal cases always tell the jury, as our judge in this case did. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, now that you've reached a verdict, now that the sentencing has occurred, you have the choice to speak or not speak. Now, that choice now is a little bit different because there is this taint on the possibility of a trial that was not fair. But under normal circumstances, jurors can decline to answer, or they can go to New York on an airplane paid for by NBC and give an interview. Again, not the issue. It's questioning the process and ensuring everybody deserves a fair trial, even the worst among us. These jurors didn't come forward necessarily because they're trying to exonerate a guilty person. It's about process.
All right, Joe McCulloch, Eric Bland staying with us. We're going to talk more about this, talk more about the court clerk as well. Plus, coming up next hour.
In Washington County, Utah, YouTube star and momfluencer Ruby Franke in court charged with the unthinkable, child abuse. How did the woman who displayed her family online on their 8 Passengers channel end up locked up and facing serious criminal charges?
Well, okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
On Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, Sydney killed her best friend, her mother.
The shock remains in this Wallhaven neighborhood of Akron.
Why? Why did that happen?
An Ohio woman pleads insanity in the stabbing death of her mother.
This is not a case about who did it. These lies were built and controlled by Miss Powell.
The voices are getting louder.
This is going to be quite a case.
The Mother Stabbed Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
I want to thank the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, and her entire team and their staff. I don't know. I call her Becky Booth. That's her nickname. But Madam Clerk, wherever you are tonight, I'm sorry. That's my pet name for her. But I want to thank you, Madam Clerk, for you, the entire team, the bailiffs, the court security, the staff here. There was no role that was too small that they weren't willing to do for us. The security team here, it was a Herculean effort by everybody, and I can't thank enough people.
And that's the Attorney General of South Carolina, the head of this prosecution team. He's the boss, thanking Becky Hill after the trial. The prosecutor's thanking Becky Hill after the trial. Fox News caught up with Becky Hill in Walterboro, South Carolina. Take a look.
Any comments at all about the allegations? Did you tamper with the jurors? Do you have lawyers now? Any comment at all, Rebecca? Anything?
And still with me, the attorneys representing some of these jurors in the case, Joe McCulloch and Eric Bland with us. So both of you, and were down there for the whole trial. Did you personally see anything that seemed like, oh, it's a little bit off? Because what I did hear from Dick Harpootlian in his press conference was, oh, wait a minute, we knew something was going on in that jury room. Like, how does anyone know if something's going on in that jury room, right? You're not supposed to know. So did either of you, I'll start with you, Eric, did you see anything that seemed out of the ordinary or hear rumors of something was happening in that jury room that was inappropriate?
I did not, and I did not personally see anything, and I didn't hear any rumors. I wasn't there as frequently as Joe was. But the fact of the matter is that, Becky was a very personable clerk of court, told some stories at the breaks. It's kind of unfair that Dick got the microphone. I have some questions about the propriety of just even doing the press conference without the AG filing anything. It wasn't in response to anything, but it is what it is. But I did take umbrage with him threatening Judge Newman that he was going to be a witness and wouldn't be able to hear this if it was remanded back once his motion to stay the appeal is heard. But there's a couple things. And again, these are important allegations. I'm not diminishing those. But the allegation that a juror couldn't have a cigarette, there's no constitutional right to have a cigarette when you deliberate in a jury room. It's a privilege. It's not a right. So I didn't see anything. I have not heard anything. When I heard last Friday that there was going to be this press conference was the first thing I heard about any jury issues. But Joe certainly was closer to the pulse than I was, so he may have heard more than anybody else.
Joe, did you notice anything yourself? Did you hear things? Because it seems like Dick Harpootlian did, and this is the result.
Vinny, I was there every day for 6 weeks. I watched the jury's faces. I watched the process. I did only hear after the jury visit to Moselle that there were some questionable conversations. I didn't get any more information about that. I obviously was not there, so I didn't know anything about that.
Wait, let me follow up on that 1 second. So conversations at the Moselle property?
Some kind of interaction between, all I heard through that proverbial grapevine is there were some conversations between court officials and jurors as they moved about. Well, you know, that was a kind of a logistical nightmare. They wanted to protect the jury from outside influence. They took them there in a van. They allowed them to walk freely. The interaction of court officials with them to say, do you need to go to the bathroom perhaps, or do you want to walk over here? I mean, I didn't have any problem with that particularly, and what I heard through that grapevine was hardly a smoking gun. And let me say again, the job that Becky Hill did through this trial was extraordinary. And I hope at the end of this process that, you know, somehow everything works out fine for her. She did one hell of a job under the worst of circumstances. All these people coming together, all this attention, and again, you know, it's unfortunate that we find ourselves here.
Well, and a lot of that has to do with, and it seems from what Dick Harpootlian said as well, and Jim Griffin, it all comes back to the book that Becky wrote. So I wanted to read this letter that Becky had sent to the South Carolina State Ethics Commission. And this is in April 28th. Good morning, Courtney. My name is Rebecca Hill, and I am the Clerk of Court in Colton County. I have a question about the writing of a book by a Clerk of Court about the process of trial from beginning to end, focusing on the process itself, the history of it, and, of course, the high-profile cases that South Carolina's had. What would be the ethic procedures behind this? And then this is the response on May 2nd. Does the opportunity for the activity arise as a result of your position as Clerk of Court? Is the subject matter of the work something within your official responsibility? Is this type of work something that the Clerk of Court's office would normally perform and for which you could receive expense reimbursement by the Clerk of Court's office? If the answers to all of these questions are yes, then writing the book would be within your official capacity, and it would be impermissible for you to receive compensation for writing the book. In the opinion of the commission staff, it seems unlikely that writing a book would fall within your official responsibilities as Clerk of Court. However, you will have to make that ultimate determination based upon your official duties guidelines above. If the answer to any of the questions above is no, then the work is not within your official capacity, and you may receive compensation for authoring the book so long as you adhere to the commission's guidelines on off-duty employment. So it seems like she got cleared ethically to write this book. What are your thoughts about her actually writing the book? Eric?
I would have preferred that she would have waited until the appeal was over. You never know with these cases. Obviously, the 404B character evidence was a hotly contested issue, which is going to be up on appeal, and there is a possibility that it could be reversed. And so I would have preferred that the court officials would have waited to, write a book. I'm certainly going to be waiting to hear what happens with Judge Newman if there's a retrial. Was his interview that he gave to the Today Show something that could disqualify him? So, I think Joe and I are in agreement on that everybody should have waited, that are clearly elected officials or court personnel, people like Joe or me or anybody else, no, we can write a book. But, people who are on the government payroll, it's a different story. So I would have preferred she waited.
Joe, are you in agreement there? Are you okay with this book being written?
I've been teaching entertainment law at our law school in Columbia for 34 years,
Vinny, I got to
think.
punch out, all right? I'm sorry.
Yep. Eric, thanks so much.
See, Eric, so I know a little bit about the subject matter. And I mean, from my opinion, I think she had the right to write a book. I'm sure she didn't do it on company time, as we say. I'm sure she didn't use resources of her office to do it. I think she's got the right to write the book.
All right. All right. Well, we'll say this thing is going to develop. My guess is there'll be perhaps a hearing, and I'll have to come back down to the Low Country and hang out with you, Joe.
Well, come on. I just hope that people will keep in contact the patrol, because it's starting now. Some of it's against Becky Hill. Some of it is against jurors. My job is very simple: to protect the two jurors I represent.
And we know they're in good hands. We know they're in good hands, Joe.
Criticism. Thank you.
Joe McCulloch, thank you so much. Thanks to Eric Bland. I know he had to jump off. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this and talk about, what is the rest of the Low Country think of what's going on now? Do they feel like maybe Alex Murdaugh is again somehow from behind bars asserting his control over this situation? I can't imagine. We'll talk about it.
I've worked hard all my life. I've gone from being a local reporter to becoming a law student to then even going on to teach other lawyers, all before I came to Court TV. As a journalist, lawyer, and teacher, I learned the secret to success is speaking in your authentic voice. And I bring that lesson to my show, Opening Statements, every morning on Court TV.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant premieres Monday morning at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Firestorm down in the Low Country. Let's bring in two more of our experts with their hand on the pulse of everything happening down there. Joining us from Port Royal, South Carolina, criminal defense attorney who's known Alex Murdaugh since he was a teenager. Jared Newman is with us. And in Columbia, South Carolina, criminal defense attorney Lori Murray. Check her out on TikTok. Lawyer. I always mess it up. Lori. Millions of views. Okay, I want to put up this tweet from Eric Bland because it set off a firestorm in and of itself, where he said, at the press conference earlier this week, Dick Harpootlian suggested that the jurors should get lawyers. How offensive is that? How threatening is that? Lori Murray, how offensive is that? How threatening is that?
It's not threatening. I mean, these jurors need the protection of an attorney to...
From what?
From the media, from separating all of them from... Yes, from you. All the people that are be contacting them. I think that they need some kind of protection. Personally believe that. But I also have some issue with people, anybody would represent them for free. I would represent them for free. So I have some issue with someone who has some kind of involvement in this case. Eric is on this Cup of Justice podcast, and one of the podcasters tweeted out that, Joe might have some connection to Dick Harpootlian and that he might be biased. Well, Eric is completely on the opposite side and definitely biased. This podcast, they came out with a tweet that said that, their condolence went out to Becky. They are as biased as they can be. So, we're here for justice. I've said this so many times. We're here for justice, whether it is something that Becky did wrong or whether it is not. He deserves a fair trial, and we'll get to the bottom of that, but you have to maintain justice. And I think that they need to put in a pot over there.
All right, Jared, here's what I think's going to happen here. I think we're not going to have a unanimous jury on this issue of what Becky Hill did or did not do. I think those two jurors may stand by and should stand by their affidavits. If it's your affidavit, you should stand by it. But I don't know if all the jurors are going to agree that's what happened. So if we all come into court for this hearing and you've got a couple of jurors saying this happened and you've got many more jurors saying it didn't happen, then what happens? I don't know. I think we may have lost Jared there. Lori, you heard the question. What happens then?
Well, I think it'll be up to the judge that is hearing, is presiding over the hearing to make a decision as to the weight of the evidence. I don't know.
But how do you weigh that evidence? Do you assess the credibility of a juror and believe one or another if they're saying completely different things inside a courtroom? Like in a criminal trial, I understand it. Like a man accused of murder is not going to get up on the stand and say, I killed somebody, right? So people will see things differently. But this is a jury. Like they're together the whole time. What?
They weren't.
They weren't?
They weren't together. Remember?
How big is that room? How big is that jury room, for goodness sakes?
I don't know, but they said they separated out the women and the men. That was on one of your shows. Somebody said they had them separated out.
Is Jared back with us?
There's the jury room.
All right. So, Jared, this jury room is small.
I can hear you.
Jared, what are your thoughts about the potential here that this jury will say different things if there is a hearing? And you may have a couple who say, Becky Hill said these things. And you might have, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe more that say it didn't happen or they didn't see it. Then what happens?
Well, I mean, there's credibility issues to the judge. What you're looking at, the hardest thing you can do is attack a jury verdict, and it should be. That verdict should be written in stone. Legal issues aside. But the two things the court can look at is extrinsic fraud and intrinsic fraud. In this case, I think you have both. Extrinsic fraud, if it's proven, from the clerk of court to the foreman of the jury or another person, and intrinsic fraud from those jurors infecting the rest of the jury pool, whether the rest of the jury pool knows they were being tacitly affected or not. The problem is I think this is a structural due process deal. Doesn't have anything to do whether he's guilty or not, because it's been on videotape. He has a right to a fair trial. We all do.
Oh, I get that.
I agree with Eric.
But what if this, right?
The integrity must be protected.
What if you have jurors saying, oh, there were private conversations with the foreperson, and then the foreperson comes in and says, no, there weren't. And Becky Hill comes in and says, no, there weren't. Then what, Lori? Then what, Lori? Is the judge going to say, I don't believe Becky, I don't believe the foreperson, I believe this other one?
Well, I think you have to take the two that are self-serving statements and toss them aside a little bit and listen to everybody else. If there's more than one person that says that they had these conversations, they're more credible than someone like Becky who has something to lose and the juror who feels like she's done something wrong. So I think that you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, which they will. And I believe it's clear and convincing evidence. I'm not sure it's either that or preponderance, but I believe it would be clear and convincing evidence of some kind of fraud there.
But if they come in and testify that this didn't happen and someone else says, oh yeah, I saw it, it definitely happened, then someone's not telling the truth. Someone's lying under oath. Does anything happen to anyone who lies under oath in a hearing like this, Jared?
Oh, it should, but I mean, I just don't know. I'm so shocked at this because you can't. Jurors should never feel intimidated about their verdict, but they are going to be questioned. And I think the credibility is whether any information or influence came back to that jury, any one iota, that it's a new trial, and I think new trial warrants complete reversal.
Which is why they need lawyers, because they should not feel pressured.
Okay, but all right, but if you come into court in a hearing, it's sworn testimony, you have to tell the truth. And again, I'm stuck on this because I just have a feeling we're going to hear different things from different members of this jury. Now, do you believe, Lori, that all 12 need to come in, or 12 plus the alternates, everyone needs to come in and testify? One after the other in a public courtroom?
Yes, I do. I think they all have to come in and testify. And, the thing is, we think about not needing an attorney because we are lawyers and we know the court system, but these are people who are not sophisticated with the court system. They've never been there. They've never probably served on a jury. I've never served on a jury. So I think that, to have that representation, somebody who knows the process, to be walking through what's going to happen and to explain that to them, that's why they need lawyers.
But and I get it, it's scary. It's a murder trial, and I understand it, but like, don't they just have to come in there and tell the truth? Isn't it that easy?
I mean, to you and me, it is, because we know the court system. We deal with it every day. But for somebody who feels intimidated or feels, maybe they're pressured not just by Dick Harpootlian, they could also be pressured by their other jurors. They could be pressured either way. This is a huge deal.
It's a huge. Oh, I know. That's why we keep doing it every night. It's a huge deal.
But it's the trial of the century, too. So would you not feel like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I really would like some guidance from somebody. So I don't think it's threatening when Dick Harpootlian says you need to get a lawyer. I feel like it's, somebody that should be a little bit less, biased than the people or the one that's represented. I think Joe's done a great job at managing impartiality, but I don't know that Eric has.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk about it again. Have a great weekend. Appreciate your time. Jared Newman, Lori Murray, two great ones down in the Low Country.